Welcome to Making Conversations Count, the podcast that shares business leaders' pivotal moments to help aspiring entrepreneurs. Today, I'm excited because I have Andrew Deighton here with me. And now I met Andrew about 3 years ago, and he has actually helped me in my business. So I know that I've had a couple of pivotal moments just off the back of meeting Andrew. So it was great to be able to ask him to come on the show and share his with you too. So Andrew, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me.
I know that we've known each other for a while. Tell everybody what you do and how we first met.
I run a training and development business now, so particularly focusing on helping businesses to build high-performing teams, and now the situation we're in, remote high-performing teams. And I also help businesses who may be a bit bigger, who need some outsourced training and development support. So putting strategies and processes in place around developing their people and their teams and their organisation. And we first met when I volunteered to do some work with Staffordshire Chamber as a mentor. And they introduced me to you and Colette. And we started having a few business mentoring sessions.
Absolutely. And
the Holiday Inn in Burton.
The Holiday Inn and their cappuccinos. Yes, because Colette is also known as my work wife for the sales and marketing workshops that we were delivering. We've not delivered any through lockdown. And that was purely because we thought that the reason that people loved our workshops so much was the interaction that they get in the room. So this remote working thing really has changed. How have the conversations that you've been having with delegates, training online, how have they changed?
Obviously, it's different. I think it's useful if you do get the chance to meet someone face to face first and then take it offline. But obviously, that's fundamentally changed now. So I ran a webinar session 2 days ago, actually. And strangely, and I don't know why, but most of the delegates were from Malaysia. So it just opens up that properly global thing without having to leave my office, and it's just bizarre. I don't know why it was, where it came from, but I advertised it on LinkedIn and Eventbrite, and most of the people there were from overseas rather than the UK, which was just strange. Really opened things up, the potential.
Yeah, there's something happening in Malaysia that there's maybe a skill shortage there. They haven't got anybody that they can call to. And I know that you're very active on social media in telling people what you do and how you do things. You do lots of video, which I think is great for connecting with people. So maybe that's why your global reach has boomed.
I try to vary things, see what works and what doesn't work. Lots of us are learning. We've had to shift. I've not shifted what I do or what I want to do, really. I've just had to shift how I do it and maybe package things a bit differently with the remote stuff. I think you can still deliver pretty interactive, pretty good workshops online, particularly with teams who know each other. Obviously, it's more difficult if you're pulling a new team together. But I think if people know each other before and they just happen to have to work remotely, you can still do away days and facilitation and team events quite successfully online.
Somebody mentioned to me a couple of days ago that we all need some form of training in terms of how to handle ourselves online in like Zoom situations, looking out for nuances of facial expression, distractions that you may not normally notice. And I know myself, I've done it, I've fallen foul of it, but also I've noticed it in team sessions that I've run as well. And I think it's that difference. I think that's perhaps why I love the phone so much. You don't necessarily need to see all of that body language. It's all about coming out in the voice, isn't it, as to what you do.
And I think when you're delivering through Zoom or something, it's about trying to remember that when you're talking, to look at the camera. The temptation is to either look at yourself or look at the person you're talking to, which you would naturally do. But if you're looking at the person that you're talking to, then you lose the eye contact because the camera doesn't see you.
That's strange, isn't it, though? Because that eye contact through the camera means that I can't keep an eye on what your responses are to what I'm saying.
Exactly. And people say it's kind of, you have to imagine you're sort of a TV presenter. And just imagine you talk, if you're doing a group session, imagine you're just talking to one person.
It's almost that pretend you're on the phone so that you don't get distracted as well by other things going on, isn't it?
That's a good technique, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that you mentioned there as well that, getting people to perform, whether they know one another or not, online can be difficult. There's got to be some success stories as well. What sort of feedback have you had from the deliveries that you've been doing?
It's been really positive, actually, so far. Things have progressed quite a lot as well. So I think people like short, sharp sessions. They appreciate that because we spend so much time, a lot of us, on Zoom, and it's back to back. 12 till 1 and then 1 till 2. I think the danger is people just don't leave themselves gaps. So what quite a lot of people suggest is running things from sort of 5 or 10 past the hour to 5 or 10 to the hour rather than hour-long sessions. And it just gives people that 10-minute break in between to get the thoughts together, go and grab a drink and so on. So I think you've got to think, and people appreciate that, if you put the thought into how you're delivering and what the impact is on people. They really appreciate it because the vast majority aren't like that. So if you're thinking about it, they appreciate it and they appreciate it more. And then just, again, trying to build in interaction, whether that's just through encouraging people to answer things in the chat box or polls or the whiteboard features, things like that. So people appreciate that and give good feedback based on that interactivity. It's not just about putting slides up and sort of a little picture of you in the corner and then just talking through slides. That's not what people want now.
I hear exactly what you're saying there, Andrew. I mean, the sessions that I run, I always say, right, I better introduce myself and tell you what we're going to be doing today. And you can see all the microphones go red with a line through because they've put themselves on mute. And I'm like, so the first thing I'm going to say to you is unmute yourselves because you're going to be involved.
Yep, absolutely.
I want you to be asking questions. This is your session. It's for you, not for me. It is interesting how the difference, I think, in expectations that you find, that it's not very refreshing when people put themselves all on mute, is it?
As well, if they don't have the video, and I know people have reasons for not putting the video on, and that's fine, but it makes it really difficult then to judge. You've got 20 little squares on the screen. You are trying to judge the reactions, but if there's no video as well, it's just really, really difficult.
That's the art of presenting as well as being engaging, isn't it? And I think this is why making conversations count. I'm so passionate about it, is because it's got to be a two-way street. You can give, but you also need to receive. So it's that speaking and listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Really important. Yeah.
Everybody that comes on the show, I always ask them to have a think about one conversation that created a turning point, and we've been calling it their pivotal moment. And one thing that's become clear is that a lot of people have more than one. Mm-hmm. So, Andrew, have you been able to think of one?
Yes, it actually goes back to 2007. So it's quite an old one.
Okay.
But it's when I was working at Rolls-Royce. So I started at Rolls-Royce when I was 18 and worked there for 26 years. I was actually in the marine business. So I was the head of employee development for the marine business in Rolls-Royce. My boss called me in one day and he said, we're setting up a new business unit. Would you be interested in being the HR director for this new business unit? And I'd sort of got a mix of HR background and a mix of training and development background. So I sort of swapped between the two. And it was a big promotion for me. So I said, absolutely, yeah, thank you for asking me. It was brilliant. From a career perspective, it was just superb. So that was all great. And then he said, but it's going to be based in Singapore. So that kind of put a bit of a different twist on things because my wife was working. I got twin girls at home who were 11 at the time and my son was 5. So I said, yes, I better just check at home first before I...
It's not just my decision.
Yes. So that was really quite a fundamental point. So then I went home and had a chat with Jo, my wife, and my fundamental thing is around opportunity, So we said, well, it was for 2 years initially. 2 years just goes like that. Let's do it. Let's go for it. So I went back and said yes. And then it came to a bit, I guess, into your arena, sales. So I had to then sell it to my kids because the girls had just started senior school. They'd been with the same friends all through school. We'd lived in the same area for all their lives, So it was going to be a bit of a sales pitch. So we went back and it was very clunky internet in those days and strange beeps and things when you went online and all sorts of stuff. But we pulled up pictures of that part of the world and the beaches and things that we could do and stuff, and started a bit of a sales pitch to the kids, really. I always remember, the thing that sticks in my mind is when we were showing these pictures, one of my daughters, Emily, she said, "Am I dreaming? Is this real?" So we knew that we kind of got them. So I accepted it. I started working in it in 2007 from the UK, just sort of going out there now and again. But then Joe and I had to go out on our sort of look-see visit and find a house and find a school and all that. It became a little bit of another sales pitch, really, just to convince Joe that it was definitely the right thing to do. I think the thing that swung it when we'd got out there, as soon as we landed, it was kind of early morning. Because of the flight times, you get there about 6 a.m. So we were in the hotel swimming pool at 8 a.m. in the sunshine at 30 degrees. And she said, "Yeah, I've probably managed this for 2 years." So I got under the convert there. Yeah, and then and also the hotel had a happy hour in the evening in this sort of the business lounge, which was on sort of the 30th floor overlooking the city, and it was free canapes and wine. So that swung it as well, I think. We decided we'll go for it. We actually moved out in March 2018. That was the start of our pivot.
It's exciting, isn't it? And I think what you've described there as well, even with your wife saying yes, the opportunity from the start, and yeah, well, let's get the kids on board. And even then going out to look for the house, it starts to become not just an expectation, but a reality. It's bridging well, it was a good idea, but is this real? Is this happening? How's it going to affect me? And then it's all the uncertainty. But what a fabulous opportunity to go out there. So what's your lasting memory of Singapore?
It's a mix of probably a couple of things, really. It's the opportunity from a work perspective. It was a proper international role. So the business that I worked in, we had 34 locations across the world. So I was looking after, it was only a small team, but a remote global team, part of an executive group looking after a 2,000 people business. So it was sort of that experience and exposure at that level, and the opportunity to sort of travel for business, which I actually really enjoy flying. Some people hate it, but I really enjoyed the business travel side. It was part of it. But also, particularly, I think that the key thing was from a family perspective for me. It opened up for all of us such an opportunity to experience things that we would never have experienced. I didn't know anything about that part of the world at all when we went out there. So we were literally going quite into the unknown. But they call Singapore Asia for beginners because it's
fairly westernized, isn't it?
Yeah. So they drive on the left and you don't need an adapter for your sockets and things. It's very Western and English law and so on. It's the opportunities that opens up to travel and experience different countries and cultures. And Singapore itself is just such a mix of cultures. There's sort of 4 main cultures in Singapore anyway, but then you bring all these different expat countries and people in as well. It's a real
pockets
of
mix. People from home.
Yeah. That whole cultural awareness and customs and, getting used to working with different people with a different perspective. And it's just great. And for the kids, they went to a school that had 42 nationalities in it, in a school of 400. And they've got friends now all over the world. So my daughter, she was due to be a bridesmaid for her friend in Australia this year, but obviously that's not happened.
Oh, wow.
She went traveling after uni and met 5 Japanese friends who she'd not seen for 5 years. And her and her boyfriend, they took them around Tokyo as tour guides, and she hadn't seen them for 5 years, but they made these friends from all over the world. And just their understanding, I think it's their understanding that they've got of different cultures is great.
So you've got all of you on the same page because it's all unknown to everybody. So you're all learning together.
As we go. Yep, absolutely.
Which, as a family unit, can either make or break you, can't it? If you're not careful, let's face it. So fabulous that they were on board, that they embraced it, and look at the knock-on effect that it's had in their lives as well, being young adults and young children coming through. Amazing.
It was tough for them at first because they were leaving their friends, obviously. It was really, particularly for the girls, because they'd got their real roots. And so it was very hard for them, to be fair, to take out. And I think social media sometimes is a bit double-edged, because it was very easy to stay in touch, which was great for us keeping in touch with our parents, but it was easy for them to keep in touch with their friends. So sometimes they, obviously missing them and stuff. But then it's okay, right? We did so much, probably so much more than we ever would have done here as a family, because we were in a rented house. We didn't have the usual, we've got to do decorating and all this sort of stuff in the house, So we did every weekend, we tried to go somewhere, just on the island, to visit different things and see different things and go to museums and go out to the pool and go to the park, and, probably brought us a lot closer together as a family than we would have.
So from that conversation of, can you take on this new role, and you go, yeah, to, can you go to Singapore? Oh, it really did have a positive impact, not just on you, but your family and your life.
And then we had to come back. And so, the girls actually were easy to bring back to the UK. Tom, my son, it was really tough for him coming back, because he'd really forgotten the UK, because he'd done sort of basically half his life by then out there, and all his friends were in Singapore, really.
The opposite adjustment.
Yeah, so he was really easy to take out, but it was really hard for him to come back, so it was really the flip side. And then, you're integrating back into the UK,
And I bet he's kept in touch with lots of people as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, South Africa, he's got friends there, and Spain, and all over the place.
God.
Both the girls have travelled since, and Tom wants to work overseas when he can as well, so it's really opened up all of us, all of our minds. And we ended up staying 4.5 years. We went for 2. If we hadn't taken that opportunity, we would never have had all that.
Yeah, because it does make you think, well, where would I be now if I hadn't have done that? And where would my family then be if I hadn't have done all that now? It is that kind of what if moment, isn't it? And just touching on what you were doing in, having a remote team in 34 locations, you've been handling remote working for a very long time.
Yeah, until recently, you kind of take it for granted or forget it, actually. When I was out there, obviously my working day started at sort of 8 o'clock, normal day, but it was really quiet because I was based out in Asia. And then about lunchtime, Norway, Finland, Sweden woke up.
Yes.
Lunchtime, Singapore time. And then an hour after that, the UK woke up. And then 5 hours after that, America woke up. So
yeah,
it was very long days, because you'd be doing calls at 10 o'clock at night at home because of the time zones. But you are working properly remotely across lots of time zones and across lots of different communities as well.
Fabulous opportunity and a fabulous story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Andrew. I think it's incredible. Anybody wanting to know anything about Singapore, obviously you must be the new tour guide.
We've been back twice, actually.
Have you?
Yeah, we went once for my big 50 birthday. Joe and I went just to sort of revisit places and see how things had changed. And then we went last year with Tom for him to have a chance to see what he remembered. Yes, and who knows when we'll get back.
Well, who knows? Maybe you'll get some invitations.
That would be nice.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Paid to go back would be.
We're not exclusive to Singapore.
No. Anywhere will do.
I'll carry Andrew's bag. But Andrew, thank you so much. If people want to pick up the conversation with you, where can they find you?
Email me. My email address is andrew@awddevelopmentsolutions.com, or just connect with me on LinkedIn. Look for Andrew Deighton, Deighton.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing again. Don't forget to send us your comments. We love to read them and do reply. So share this with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe. The link you need is makingconversationscount.studio/podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time. Bye-bye.